Oftentimes when we're working on ourselves and we're trying in our lives, I think everyone is to some degree trying in their lives. I don't think you'd be part of this program whatsoever if you weren't wanting to become better, a better version of yourself. And that's really what coaching's all about. So it's only natural that from time to time we ask ourselves, why isn't this working? Why can't I create the change that I so desire in my heart? What is missing? So we've created this worksheet called What's Missing for Your Success, because we feel like this part of the methodology really outlines what's required to create change in a very straightforward way. So what's required to create change in your life is first and foremost a vision. What is it that I see for my future and myself? After you have your vision, then you also need to say that I have skills, right? You have to know what skills you have. Let's say you want to become a trader on Wall Street. Well, if you don't have the skills to do that, you're going to have to get the skills, for example. So you really need a vision, then you need to have the skills, and then you need to have incentives. Now, that might seem a little bit childish, right? But actually it's not. This is science that has to do with behavioral change, and this is very important that we have incentives. For example, if you keep working on something and working on it and working on it, and you're never getting any financial return, you're never getting any acknowledgement, there's no incentives on any level, whether it's material, emotional, verbal, so on and so forth, you're not going to be able to sustainably create that change if the incentives aren't there. So you have to have vision, skills, incentives. In addition to incentives, you also need resources. And resources don't necessarily mean money, right? It doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I have to have $10,000 to build my platform or my website or whatever it is you want. The resources are also your community. That's also a resource. Your resources could also be your garden in your backyard, right? I mean, there's so many different ways to look at what resources are around you. This is something very small, but let's say you need a stapler to put together your packet for a talk that you're giving next week. A stapler could also be considered a resource. So I just give that example. There are small resources, of course, and then large resources, whether maybe you own a building, or let's say you want to start a touring business. You live in an area where there's a lot of tourists, so you need a bus. So what are the resources that you have at your disposal? And then from those things, with the vision, the skills, the incentives, and the resources, you create your action plan. Now, if one of those things is missing, you're going to actually have some troubles. You're gonna come up against challenges. So you really need all of those things in alignment and in their full expression in order to create the change. Now, let's say you don't have vision. Let's say the vision falls out, but you have the skills, the incentives, and the resources and an action plan, but you have no vision. You have no goals. You have really no idea what you're working towards. You're just going to be confused. So you've got to have the vision. Let's say you have vision, but you don't have skills. You really want to become a biodynamic farmer, but you really have no idea about agriculture or biodynamic farming, or you don't really know how to do that whatsoever. You don't have any skills, but you've got resources, you've got land, you've got money, you have a vision, this is what you want to do, you have incentives because you have payoff somewhere along the way, and you have an action plan, but you don't have the skills. If you have this setup where you've got the vision but no skills, incentives, resources, and an action plan, you're just going to have a lot of anxiety. You're just going to feel upset a lot and be really anxious because you can't really set yourself up for the change and the success that will be required. Let's say you have the vision and you have the skills, but you lack the incentive. You've got the resources and an action plan. So let's say incentives are falling away. Well, I think, and research has shown, that you will get change, but it'll be very slow. You really need the incentives in order to get the change that you're looking for. But it'll still work. If you've got the vision and you've got the skills, you've got resources and an action plan, you will still get to where you're going. It'll just be a little bit slower based on the research. Now, let's say resources fall away. Let's say you've got the vision, the skills, the incentives, and the action plan, but you don't have resources. You're just going to feel frustrated, like you're spinning your wheels. let's say you really want to build this platform, but you lack financially the ability to fund what's required to make it happen. You're just going to feel frustrated all the time, not moving forward, not being able to get to where you want to go. And then finally, if you're missing your action plan, you're just going to have a bunch of false starts. You're just going to start to do something with your vision and your skills, your incentives and your resources, but you have no action plan. It's just going to fall short. You probably know people who do this. People who don't really have an action plan, and they just keep starting things, and they never really achieve anything. They don't really get the change that they so desire in their heart. It's really important that you, as a person, for your own life, understand that all of these things are required to really create sustainable change. I don't know about you, but I know so many people, including myself, that have struggled to create sustainable change. They can start to exercise and get on a great path for a month, maybe even 8 weeks, but then it just falls away. Or they lose the 5 pounds and then they completely just can't keep it up. Or they start a business idea and then it just falls away. And in my heart, I always feel sad for myself and the people that I see from a distance experiencing these things. But really, this is the recipe for success. When you've got the vision, you got the skills, you create the incentives, and you acknowledge them. Then you also have the resources, or you find the resources creatively, and you put all of that into an action plan to move yourself forward, all bundled up within the goal. And you've got a beautiful recipe for success and sustainable change. And that's what we want for you. That's what the Hippocrates Health Institute, the Hippocrates Lifestyle Medicine Protocol, the coaching program, that's really what we want for you. Having the knowledge is only one piece of the puzzle. Really knowing how to create the whole life perspective is how to create much more velocity and power and fulfillment in your life.